On today's episode of Meet Me for Coffee, I'm thrilled to welcome an artist who is redefining modern soul. Red Rosamond has been captivating listeners with her blend of timeless alt R&B, bold production, and emotionally charged storytelling, from sharing stages with icons like the Smashing Pumpkins, Cage the Elephant, to creating music that's made waves in hit shows like Dark, True Detective, and Lucifer. She's becoming a force to be reckoned with. Here to talk about her debut studio album, Whip, short form for Work in Progress. Here she is. Red, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. So this record is very cool. I get like hints of like Adele and Pink. I'm sure you've gotten a lot of comparisons.
Yeah, over the years, I have gotten a lot of comparisons. I definitely have gotten Adele before. Pink, I've never got. I usually get like a blend of Adele and Amy Winehouse is like normally what people say.
Yeah, and what inspired you to go that path of the genre? Did it just happen?
Yeah, I think, like I'm a music lover, like I'm obsessed with music. And since I can remember, like, uh, I've just been listening to everything and soaking everything in. And the one constant throughout all of it from when I was really young was soul music and just all of the greats. And I think like through my journey of like trying out different genres and just expressing myself in all different ways, it just kind of happened. I mean, I think the main difference with this project, which probably is why it like roots together and grounds in that place, is it's the first project I wrote and produced myself. And I think just like being it only me. Like, I think that's why it comes out so prominently throughout the entire record.
Yeah, your single Inside gained immense traction through its use in major TV shows. How did the experience shape your approach to creating music that resonates on different platforms?
Interesting. You know, it's funny because Inside I wrote specifically for film and television. So it wasn't like Chris and I went into the studio to like create like an artist, both of our, like a collaboration between both of us. We were in like a writing camp for like film and television, and we got paired up and we just hit it off. And in this session, we just kind of took a brief and wrote what we did, and then it blew up, and it like got synced and then synced again and synced again. And while like that's incredible and I'm so grateful for it, I think on the contrary, I think like because the around the time when I was writing, when we wrote that song was right before I left LA to come back to Canada. And I was sort of in a transitionary period in my life where I had been kind of trying for the past while before that to like write songs to sort of like hit an audience or to like try and like just break through, because I've been doing this for a minute. And it's funny because like the song that broke through was like we 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 put the least amount, like we had thought into it, but it was just like we were really just in the moment, like with a brief and just like doing what we do, and it worked. And I think coming back to Canada when that success started happening, and I had stopped doing so many like writing sessions for film and television and just focused on my artist stuff. I think on the contrary, it was like I more so just said, I don't know if I can swear in here. Can I swear?
Go right
Probably
ahead.
don't do that. Okay,
Yeah.
well, like fuck, like trying to write for everybody else. I'm sick of it. Like I just want to like just do whatever it is that comes to me with no boundary. And I think like that was kind of the approach that I took on that is the approach I took on this record. And so yeah, so kind of the opposite, I guess, in a way.
Now, WHIP, or however you say it, stands for work in progress. What's one
That is how you
aspect
say
of
it.
your artistry or personal journey that still feels like a work in progress?
I feel like everything is a work in progress. I feel like my entire existence is a work in progress. And like, I don't know, it's just the way I look at life. Like, I feel like I'm never going to stop learning. I'm never going to stop growing. I mean, hope I don't, like my intention is to always stay pure in the sense of like always trying to move forward and be accountable for myself. And even in my art, like try and push it forward. I'm interested in like innovation and shedding things and exploring new things. And I think in order to do that, you have to be open. And I think work in progress just kind of signifies that. It's just like the way I look at life.
I love that. You've received lots of praise from Vice and Billboard. Now, this just show's called Meet Me for Coffee. So, if Whip were a coffee order, what would it be and why?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, I guess to, I mean, Whip is a really honestly the truest representation of me, like where I'm at right now, everything going on. And I think because of that, it would have to be what I order for coffee, which is just really simple. It's like a just an oat milk latte. Really just like a and just because it's not the most authentic, I think, body of work I could have released right now. So that's like, yeah, that's what it would be.
Now, if you were doing something like super experimental, I would have expected like tons of, syrup shots in there or something like that, and
Sure, yeah, 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 yeah.
shaken and chilled or something.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool to talk to someone that's had their music featured on Netflix shows. Fool Me
Mm-hmm.
Once.
Mm-hmm.
I think we were talking before this. One of the weirdest uh, shows ever to be released on Netflix, and quite possibly one of the most brilliant ones, Dark. Um,
Yeah.
you had a chance to watch that whole thing, didn't you?
Mhm. Yeah, and like whenever I get stuff in film and television, I never know. Like, well, I knew True Detective was awesome, but like for the most part, if it's a new show, I'm like, I don't know if it's gonna be good or not. Like, you never know. It's just you're happy to have your song out there. But then when we started watching it, it was like the second episode, and I was like, or the first episode, I was like, what is going on? And also, like, I'm so into it, and this is such a cool show. And then by the time my song came on, I was such a fan of the show that it was just such a different experience for me. Like, it really like was very magical. I feel really grateful to be a part of that show because it is such a brilliant show and it's so different and my music is so different. And so it's just so cool to be a part of that, like that my energy attracted that energy and it just kind of came together. It's just like I'm really proud of that. It's really cool.
You have lots to be proud of. And by the way, I
Yeah,
do
thank
hold
you.
like the world rewinding record for that show. You watch
Yeah,
Dark,
yeah.
go through the episode, and then all of a sudden something else happens. You're just like, okay, wait,
Yeah.
I have to rewind this. And then you do it a few
Yes.
times, pause it, and it's like, okay, so what is going on here? It's almost
Dude, for
your,
real.
your record, right? I mean, it comes
Mhm.
back, from the first song to the last song, right? And it's like a
Yeah.
familiar kind of feel, right?
Mhm.
Kind of, I would like to loop that into that, creating the album
Yeah.
and placing the songs in certain ways, or order. How'd you come up with the order list?
Obsessively. I spent I spent way too long on it, to be honest. I very much so. I appreciate you saying that, first of all, because I was really intentional with it. And I wanted it to be that it kind of looped into itself. And because it's such a short record and there's so much going on in it and so much changing and so many little things throughout it that are introduced that are new throughout every song. I really wanted it to feel like an atmosphere that you could just be in and loop in and cyclically tie into patterns of like growth and, just all these things like very complex in the way that I was thinking about it when I was putting it together or wrapping it up anyway. And I just spent a really long time like if you look at my SoundCloud, like my private SoundCloud, it's just like playlist after playlist of different orders and how it feels. And I would just like loop it and walk with it in my earbuds, or I would go to the gym and work out, or I would, take it through different settings and different times of the day to see if it affected me emotionally differently. Um, and I went through a lot of different track listings before it landed on what it is. But yeah, it was really an arduous, not gonna lie, it was a really long process for part of that process was me being like, am I gonna fucking be able to finish this out? Like I have to finish this album. And like luckily I had a grant that I got from the Canadian government that forced me to finish it on a certain date. And like honestly, that really helped because I was able to just be like, okay, it just is this. It's been sitting at this and this is good.
That's unbelievable. It's a great story. You grew up in the Toronto area. You're in
Mm.
Canada. Who are some of your favorite bands or artists? And growing up to now
Like Canadian artists or just in general?
from Toronto.
Mm. Well, when I was first coming up and playing a lot, I was doing like a blues garage rock thing. And during that time, people like City and Color, Dallas, we were close because we were on the same label or we were friendly friends. Um, so I really appreciate what he does. Man, there's so many. It's so funny. Like I have a terrible memory, to be honest with you. But like I don't know if I have one. The thing is like back then, it was such a scene. And there was just, it was so different than what I can gather it is right now. I haven't played live out for a minute, but like when I have conversations with people who are playing out, it seems to have shifted from like when I started and I was doing it. It was very much like, it felt very special and it felt very like everybody's coming together and we all go to each other's shows and we all bar hop and like, it was like a, I was really I'm really happy to have been a part of it, And so it like kind of was like the whole scene. Like I just loved being in it. I loved being around these creative people. There wasn't like honestly, there wasn't favorites. I said Dallas because it was the first that popped into my mind, but like literally, like it was just I think the Toronto scene was just so special when I was doing that, that it was more so about the community of it, and like what we all supported each other. Like we would go to each other's shows and like, you know, tour with one another, and it was just like really cool.
I had a season of the show where I just kind of focused on getting Canadian artists on, like that I
Hmm.
listened to. I got like guys from Prozac.
Oh
One of my
wow.
one of my favorite bands ever is the Philosopher Kings. You know
Oh
those guys?
yeah, cool. Yeah, of course. I actually
Have-
met those guys. I was interning at a record label when I was like 16 in Toronto called the Orange Record Label. I don't know if it's still around, but they came in one time and like they were really cool. They were fun.
yeah, their music like blows my mind. Like I would definitely see them
Yeah.
again if I could, but I guess according to the singer, it's never gonna happen again. So
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
maybe maybe a bit sad, but glad I kind of broke the news here on my show. So uh,
Yeah.
if you could go back and give yourself some advice, your younger self,
Mm.
what would it be like, especially when it comes to pursuing a music career in Toronto?
I think about this a lot. Um, I don't, the thing is like Toronto, not Toronto, because I left Toronto, for a while. I definitely came up here and I did a cool thing here, and then I left to California for a bit, and now I'm back. But I would say to anybody, the amount of, I mean, from my perspective right now, my career, the amount of work that it takes, like discipline, in order to make it a living or make it something that you can sustain yourself with. Like if your dream is to sustain yourself solely from your art, like I'm still figuring that out, And like what I can gauge from going to California, which was a really good change of scenery for me to learn that very fast, being in those environments, trying to do what I was trying to do and starting from scratch, basically. But I would just say the discipline of it. Because like when I came up, I had a really romanticized idea, just like I'm sure any other like, teenager has, where they're like, I can play music and, tour. And for some people, maybe it happens that way. But, I've worked at every single step in my career and tried to figure it out because there's no roadmap that like tells you you don't go to like you can go to school. I'm sure for like I went to school for guitar, but like really like like you don't walk away with like a step-by-step guide to like if you go to school for let's say become a teacher, I don't know, any other discipline, like there's kind of a route. And I think with music the most intimidating and difficult part is that there's no clear cut way to do it. And I think the main thing is, for me anyway, is discipline. And like once I started just showing up every day in the studio, whether or not I wanted to or not, and setting hours for myself, like really amazing things started happening. And when opportunities arose, I was prepared, as opposed to just being like living my fantasy artist life,
Yeah,
you know?
I
I don't
absolutely
know if
agree
that,
with you. I agree with you. And
yeah,
it's also about the
yeah,
energy and attitude you have. I think it's the vibes you put out into the world or the universe, and somehow it ends up working out for you.
right.
And I don't know if you've been watching TikTok lately with this Big Daddy Mark guy. He just sings all these songs. That's
No,
like
I just
that's
recently got on TikTok, like just because everybody's like, yeah, TikTok, and I have to like promote stuff.
well,
But like I haven't actually like been on the app, like
yeah.
to browse it.
So now that I've mentioned it, it's probably gonna pop up on your feed tonight.
I'm sure.
It's this guy just sings songs, and I think that's like the next thing. People breaking new bands and stuff like that. This guy will, he sings songs already established from like Motorhead and whatever like that. Dr. Dre,
Mm,
NWA, becoming very popular. But imagine if he just sang a song with the following he had, like your song or someone else's song who hasn't, broke it huge yet. How big that would go, right? I mean, I think
mm.
that's the future. Influencers is the future, right? It's a different ball game, I think, as than it was maybe
Yeah.
10 years ago. And it's incredible how
Oh
things
yeah.
have advanced.
It it blows my mind, and to be honest, I feel like still behind it. I like I said, I just got on TikTok, and I have zero interest in wanting to be on it because I just sort of feel like I want to spend time in the studio making art, which is like obviously every artist wants to do that. But the marketing side of music has shifted dramatically, and some for like the best ever, and some for to its detriment, and like it's a continual thing in my day where I try and find the balance and what that means to me. And to be honest, I haven't found that yet, but my aim is to find, I try to find the most authentic way to do everything. And sometimes with like certain things like trends or whatever, I was never about that. I'm never going to be about that. Like I can't even fake it. I can't go on and like do a dance and like be like sick, like listen to my music. Like I'm just not that person. But I think, yeah, it's cool that things are changing, and I'm very interested to see how things change over the next 10 years because, even with AI and all that stuff, it's just so much, it's such a big conversation.
Yeah, I mean, be yourself. That's the big thing, right? For me, I have a hard time doing social media because I don't want to be like taking photos and doing things I don't want to do, right? Um,
Yeah.
but your music stands on its own, and I feel if you are yourself online, people will attract themselves to you. And Red, I want to say thank you so much for joining us for this awesome episode of Meet Me for Coffee. One more question: how do you take your coffee?
Like I said earlier, I take it, it's really boring. It's just an oat milk latte.
Awesome, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.